30 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
I thought this morning we would not suffer environmental molestation and that you and I would be able to deal with other matters that are of vital importance. I was hoping to give a kind of an economic roundup based on the day's news reports that would suggest a bit the nature of local economy, the nature of free markets, which are our object of ardent interest and desire. That is what we desire, to have a genuine local economy and free markets, which of course means pushing back the instrumentalities, the agencies of the modern state. However, this I'm going to have to leave aside for the moment and ask you, my listener, to look up. Just look up. Coming in today from my house on the hilltop into our studio in Hickson here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, I was just impressed. I was so impressed at the demonstration that we are having today of jet traffic. There are probably 30 or 40 trails in the sky. Several of them seem to be crossing. And if you look at the trails that have been laid white plumes, they are in contrast to others. I've seen several jets today, just looking up, that aren't leaving long, stringy, puffy, cirrusy type trails. They just are leaving little short ones on their rears. Those, I would suspect, are what are called contrails. The longer ones that are dispensing themselves and doling themselves out across the sky in kind of becoming carpets, if you will, those are commonly called chemtrails. Now, I don't use that word because that's a kind of a fighting word. It suggests that I have a stake in that matter, that I'm a partisan, that I'm looking at the issue from a sense of having a foregone conclusion and then seeing everything based on that. Well, no, what I've been doing here as journalist at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio is looking at the research, looking at what my eyes are seeing, registering what my eyes are seeing, my optical scientific observational starting points. We all have two of them in our skulls, and saying, what is the story? Well, the story is, as we have been developing here at our radio station and on Nooganomics.com, the story is of a major ramping up of the aerosol disbursement program. It's often called SAG. SAG simply means stratospheric aerosol geoengineering. But in the past few days, I've been breaking the story among the media outlets in Chattanooga. I'm number 7 in the media outlets. Nooganomics is number 7. And of course, we're number 1, but I realize that's not, I wouldn't want to claim that as a radio station. But the Nooganomics platform, I would like to suggest, is number 7. Somewhere in that mix is our radio station. But there, anyway, we've been covering this phenomenon as a matter of science and as a matter of environmental concern, trying to see the benefits of this form of pollution. It is pollution. It is air pollution. But the neat thing is that it's outside the scope of the Clean Air Act. It does not fall under the rubric of the Clean Air Act. It is in a jurisdiction, a legal jurisdiction, that's apart from that safeguarded and shielded by the Environmental Protection Agency. And it's handmaiden here in our county, the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Air Pollution Control Bureau, under a board, its director being Bob Colby. This program is invisible to the officials in these agencies because it is outside their scope and purview, but it is a form of pollution. Official pollution is called a negative emission. And I just ask you today to tell a friend, say, hey, look up in the sky. What do you make of this? It is simply a visitation. I'll say visitation. Now, the coverage that we've been giving to this story has been extensive. I'm the reporter. I'm a former newspaper editor. Worked for 24 some years in the newsroom at the Chattanooga Times-Free Press, covering the business, making the business world, making the business editors, the business writers look good. That was what I was charged with doing for many years, since the merger of the Times and the old News-Free Press. My experience has been that I try to cover things objectively. And this story, though I do have an argument to make, I'm trying to cover it objectively, and giving credit where it's due. The credit belongs to the national government and its ostensible policy of fighting global warming. Dr. Herndon, the geophysicist and the nuclear chemist, whom we've interviewed and whose paper I've summarized, I'd say in a very important essay at Nooganomics.com, says that his study indicates that the sky stripes, the sky tattoos, if you will, over Chattanooga, are industrial waste. From where? Well, from entities the likes of which we could name TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, which burns coal in its 13 or so steam plants, energy creating plants. And the waste product of coal is fly ash, which is very, very light. And we've had a couple of stories already about the fly ash angle, which is new. This is new in this important story here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County, over Main Street, right, over Broad Street, over Macaulay, Bailey, Gun Barrel Road, and all the other boulevards, from Tiftonia to Ottawa, from Saudi Daisy to Rossville. We have this major story. And it is of an intentional program to pollute the air for a high purpose. Now, let's not immediately jump to the aluminum content and all the negatives of this program. The prospect that it is sickening us and poisoning our neurological systems with aluminum. Let's just lay that aside for a minute. Anybody can be critical, right? Anybody can just criticize, right? Let's not do that. Let's try to see the benefits of this program. Well, for one, it is a great demonstration of national power. We are Americans. We can do everything. We control the weather. And we are so powerful and so ingenious as a people that we can dim the sun with these clouds. You just watch what happens over the course of the day. We're going to have blue sky, which is bad. Blue sky is bad. And we're going to have, at the end of the day, if the wind doesn't blow it all away haphazardly, we're going to have a milky, crummy looking sky. Crummy sky is good sky. Okay, you got that? Crummy sky is good sky because it dims the sun. The sun is the great villain in the piece, and we have to make sure that we can save on the blue tube of paint in the plein air painter's palette. We want to do that because on those outdoor scenes, we want to save money by not having to have blue anymore, right? Blue paint is expensive, so let's just save and make it all kind of a mucky white, a brownish yellow. And I'll be posting a story. I was going to post it tomorrow, but I think I may get it out there today, but there's a photograph of what fly ash looks like in the hand of a very attractive reporter from Fox News. And then also I've got a close-up of some pair of hands holding fly ash from a coal refuse pit. And it's very light, it's very, very grainy, very fine, and it's like talcum powder. And that's the advantage. Talcum powder stays up there. But as Dr. Raymond Herndon suggests, it comes down because as he finds in San Diego in his study, it's not being deposited in the stratosphere, where theoretically it might stay for a couple of years before coming down and landing on our tongues or on our organic lettuce leaf. But it's being laid in the troposphere, which is it's 20,000 feet where the weather is, not at 40,000 where the high cold currents wander about. And so the benefits are that we can have this erstwhile pretended program to cool the planet, and we can make things happen. We can make the biggest storms happen, and we've done it. The Americans have done it since the time of Vietnam and Operation Popeye. And we can make the biggest, baddest droughts happen. There's one happening now in Iraq where the daily temperature, according to a story I looked at a couple weeks ago, is 110 degrees. We can do it in California. We are a powerful, powerful people, and we have a central government that takes charge. We just have to accept it takes charge of things, and if it has to do it in secret, well, so be it, right? We have national security, and Chattanooga needs to understand. You, my listener, need to understand that you are the beneficiary of people who understand the necessity to fence, right? If it's necessary, we will do it, and to hell with law. We are above the law. In fact, we make the law. Our Congress makes laws, okay? And it makes laws for people like you, the listener. We make laws for you. We want you to think that the details matter. We want you to think that that nitrogen oxide coming out of the back of a Volkswagen in more volume than we thought, that is a scandal. It's in fact, it's a scandal so bad that the marketplace needs to understand that. And the marketplace needs to react correctly in slashing the value of Volkswagen by 40%, the equity value in the marketplace by 40%. To put some perspective on these two environmental stories, the big one, of course, is the one that no one writes about except me, David Tulis, and the one that everybody's talking about and writing stories about and having photographs about is the Volkswagen story. But there really is no comparison when you think about this beleaguered manufacturer from Germany. Holman Jenkins, in a Business World column a couple days ago in the Wall Street Journal, proposed as a way to settle the VW scandal. And he says after 2008, the rules restricted the emission of nitrogen oxide output per mile to 0.07 grams. That's 7/100th of a gram. And he says this target of 0.07 grams is already about 90% reduction from the NOx, that's the nitrogen oxide output, of the average car on the road today. I mean, that accounts for the fact that there are older cars on the road. It represents about 1/40th the output of the average full-size pickup, gasoline or diesel, of which more than 10 million are on the road. So there are 10 million full-size pickups on the road, and the rule for Volkswagen that it has offended, right, is that it's 1/40th of the average output. No doubt health benefits have been secured for the American people as the worst polluting vehicles have been removed from circulation. A heavy truck in the 1980s put out 28 grams per mile. Okay, so the limit now for diesel emissions under the clean diesel regulatory system is 0.07. So that's 1/100th of 1% of a gram per mile traveled. And to give you some perspective, there are now millions of tons, according to Dr. Herndon, there are millions of tons, according to this man who runs TransDyne Corporation, which is his sort of corporate structure in which he does much of his scientific research, and millions of tons of pollutants, which are official pollutants. Marvin Herndon says his essay is called "Evidence of Coal Fly Ash Toxic Chemical Geoengineering in the Troposphere: Consequences for Published Health." This was an essay that was published and hastily retracted by the editor after he faced just unreasonable pressure to throw it off of his magazine, a scientific journal. Now you're going to read about that at the website for the man who matters. That's at Nooganomics.com. Of which I'm the mild-mannered editor, and that is kind of the name of our show here with David Tulis. I do thank you for giving me just a couple of minutes of your time. We believe in local economy and the free market, and we suggest that you love your neighbor and that you buy local. Buy local and be suspicious of the good people. That's why I cover geoengineering as an environmental journalist, because I want you to be suspicious, be skeptical. Have questions for the good people in Washington and in Nashville. Near is better than far, small than big, simple than complex, I suggest. That's my suggestion here on our radio station. If I could have every host, every expert, every a talker on our station make these arguments, I would, but I can't control what other people say, and I sponsor them for their benefit and for yours, primarily your benefit. And in the footnotes we have where the flies fight with their scimitars and their lances. The flies are fighting, and the fleas too. We have personal is better than corporate, and physical than abstract. Those 5 points, 2 are footnotes and 3 are main bars. They make the case for local economy in the free market. We're going to talk about how prisons, how penal reform is gravely needed as a benefit, I'd say for God's glory, but for the benefit of men, and for the enhancement of local economy and free market. We're going to look at that in detail. So please think that we are here to inform, to, you might say, to entertain you, my listener. And there's more to get to on Volkswagen. If I can just tuck that corner of the bed sheet in and make things right. There's a story on TV3 WRCB TV by Kelly McCarthy. And she quotes Bill Sonnenberg, a Volkswagen buyer, loves this Jetta. He's been buying Volkswagen since 1961. He had a Beetle in high school, and he says if he'd known that the company was cheating on its emissions, he would never have bought his car. He says, "No, I don't think I would have bought it, knowing it was tainted or tricky or rigged. But it sure is fun to drive the way it is now." So what he's taking part in one of those lawsuits, right? One of these noxious lawsuits, the offended party, right? Well, you don't want to be. It's okay to be offended. I'm in the market for a used car, and we got our eye on a Camry for a son. The son named David Jonathan Tulis, the exact same name as mine, so we can confuse the enemy, right? This young man is looking for a car, so I've been helping him shop. We're looking for the Toyota Camry used, 150,000 miles or more. That's a 300,000 mile car. And of course, we started our search at Automax on Highway 58, just by the way. And well, we might be looking at buying one of these diesels at discount. And the reason is we don't want it repaired; we want it unrepaired, and you can buy it for now anyway at discount. This Sonnenberg has a 2009 diesel Jetta, gets the best gas mileage out of any of the cars he's owned, and he loves the turbo performance. It's extremely peppy and fun to drive. It's been a great car, he says. And here he's suing because he's hurt, right? Somehow he's going to have to prove himself injured by this. And if he has the car repaired, well, guess what? The mileage is going to go down. The pep is going to be a memory. He's not going to have any pep in his car. There's another story about this from Valeria Sistrunk at, let's see, TV12, our affiliate. We are the CBS radio news station here in Chattanooga. My name is David Tulis, and we are CBS. We have Fox as well. Also, just by the way, NASCAR and NFL only here at Hot News Talk Radio. It is hot. It is news. It is radio. And more than that, we are online. You can see if my bow tie works today at YouTube. I'm the talk show host and radio station owner who, though he is just a distended voice, always wants to look good for you, the listener, because I do better when I know that I'm meeting an important man, and whether on the radio or whether on YouTube, and I want to make my best impression as I can, and that's my job here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. I'm the number 5 show. We're really working hard to get better than that, but I've got stiff competition. Keon Rose, our sports expert, Eric Judd, the convivialist. We have Sean Hannity, the American exceptionalist, neoconservative. I'm a great conservative guy, and he's our number 2 and number 1 digital drive with Russell the Kid, our news director, Russell Stroud, a young man, 20 years old, already news director, homeschool kid, never set foot in a classroom. And he is our digital drive expert. Also runs our 5 o'clock drive home show. Make sure you tune into that. Bill Haslam stops by the Chattanooga Volkswagen factory. This was yesterday, according to Valeria Sistrunk at our CBS affiliate, WDEF.com. She says, she quotes Governor Haslam saying, "The state of Tennessee is not going anywhere in terms of supporting you all." There are a couple of Volkswagen owners she quotes, but they say they won't be Volkswagen owners for much longer. Everyone believed it. said Jameson Altbach. To be honest with you, at this point, I feel bamboozled by the company, as do many people. And Amy Brandon's quoted another, supposedly disaffected Volkswagen owner. I've always been a Toyota person. I'm sure I'll go back, she says to Toyota. Well, it is, of course, hugely overblown because the proportions are just laughable. Now, the proportions are not laughable if you go to Raphael's Pizzeria, an Italian restaurant, as I did yesterday. I had my mom and 2 sons with me. We had a great meal at Raphael's Pizzeria, an Italian restaurant in Sunny Daisy. Giant proportions, just delicious. I had what's the name? I can't remember the name, but white spaghetti with chicken. What's that called? And a son had such a bowl of spaghetti he couldn't finish it, so we took that home. And just delightful. If you buy a pizza at Raphael's, you get 2 for the price of 1. That is not a laughable proportion, is it? Raphael's Pizza in Saudi is 332-4559. That's 332-4559. Raphael's Pizza. Pizzeria and Italian restaurant. Also, if you need financial advice, contact Patrick Neal, the Edward Jones financial advisor, right here. Patrick Neal, Edward Jones, 870-7894. That's 870-7894.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
After areas of patchy dense fog, another warm and dry day expected for your Thursday. Highs back into the lower 80s. Tonight, a few more clouds, milder lows, lower 60s. For Friday, a few scattered afternoon showers and thinner showers will march through. Highs upper 70s, drier and cooler for the weekend. Did you know that you could purchase a home now with little or nothing down? Find your dream home at McBriar Realty. Call McBriar Realty at 706-657-2353 or McBriarRealty.com. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
The Fed raising rates, China's economy in trouble. Don't let headlines derail your long-term financial strategy. I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Patrick Neal. At Edward Jones, we provide the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing. Stop by my office next to the Target Shopping Center in Hickson or call me at 423-870-7894. That's Patrick Neal at 870-7894. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
That smells so good. Smells like a big Italian dinner. But you're going to walk out with 2. Buy 1 hot pizza, get a 1 for free. 2 pizzas. You got the 2 for the price of 1 at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. My favorite Italian restaurant of all the time. Now, I'm living in Hickson. I go to Raphael's right down the street in Hickson Pike, right near Highland Plaza. You're in Saudi Daisy? At Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria in Saudi Daisy. Just next to Saudi Daisy Church of God. Hey, you're on Signal Mountain. There's a Raphael's Italian Restaurant and a Pizzeria. It's right on the main drag. You're going to love the pasta, the pizza. Buy 1 hot pizza, get a 1 for free. 2 pizzas. You got the 2 for the price of 1 at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Tastes so good. Bring the whole family. Come on, Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Mangia. Salute.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, myself for all the action.
Hot News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. House Republicans getting ready to pick their party's choice for the next House Speaker this morning.
It takes 218 votes, a majority of the entire House, to win the Speaker's gavel. That House Republicans will try to rally around a single nominee in a secret ballot session. Current Republican leader Kevin McCarthy is considered the frontrunner, but Utah Republican Jason Chaffetz says McCarthy is short of 218 Republican votes.
Fox Radio's Jared Halpern. The floor vote is set for October 29th. Hundreds of roads and bridges remain closed across flood-damaged parts of South Carolina, and the Nobel Prize for Literature awarded to a Belarusian writer,
Svetlana Alexievich, for her polyphonic writings, A Monument to Suffering and Courage.
The oral history Voices from Chernobyl is one of her best-known works in the U.S. Fox News, we report. You decide.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
There are pickets outside the Tufco plant in Chattanooga. The Machinists Union is picketing the corporate office on South Holtzclaw. We're asking for the right to have a voice in the workplace, says Keith McFarland, a union rep. There's a statement published on TV 12's website, a story by Eric Judd, and the statement is that the union is asking for unreasonably high compensation, and that Tufco Corporation has other manufacturing plants that are not union, and the staff from those plants are covering those who have walked off the job here in Chattanooga. There will be business as usual. Customers and suppliers won't know the difference. This is David Tulis. We are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. There's news about the news business. The newspaper industry is shriveling in its value, and the story on the local media today is that two state papers, the Memphis Commercial Appeal and the Knoxville Sentinel, part of a group called Media Group out of Milwaukee. Media Group sold for $280 million, a mere pittance, considering these were once former giants of the news business. The news business has been shattering, and we are part of that process. I hope. I'm David Tulis, a writer. The writer, the blogger with the biggest pen, I like to brag, if you will, in Chattanooga, that being a 180-foot tower from which emanate AM radio signals, of which you are, I hope for the moment anyway, the beneficiary. We are going to talk now about a subject which has a terrific implication for local economy and the free market, and that is the penal system. The penal system where ostensibly, purportedly, wrongs are righted and things coming from crime and negligence are made right. Justice, we are to understand, is brought to bear there, and good comes from evil. Our guest is Mark Casson, who's the executive director of Metanoia Ministries, and also the director of prison ministries for the Presbyterian Church in America. He's married man. He and his wife Raylene have two children. Both girls ages 3 and 6. He's 48 years old and lives in East Ridge. Now, Mark, I'd like to kind of stagger the listener, if you can, stagger the listener with some of the data showing the gigantic growth of the prison industry, and then I hope what we can do is we can look at these staggering figures, and then ask ourselves, what does that have to do with us? How are we being wronged by this gigantic national industry?
Sure, David, thank you. Back in the 1980s, if you remember, Ronald Reagan declared a war on drugs. And as a part of that war on drugs, we started increasing our sentences for every crime that you can imagine that could be committed. So the 1980s into the 1990s, they saw a decade of the largest growth in prisons in the entire history of the world. the United States, the prison industrial complex, basically more than doubled the size of our prison system in a decade. And during that decade, just a couple of statistics for you. In 1984, there were 34,000 people serving life sentences in our country. By 1992, at the end of President Bush's term, that number had more than doubled to 69,845 in just 8 years. And then in 11 more years, it almost doubled again, up to 127,000 people serving life sentences. In recent news, what does that mean? Right now, we have 159,000 people on serving life sentences in our country. Let me put that in perspective. In Tennessee, we would have to increase the prison population by 6.5 times its current size to house just the number of lifers in the United States, at a cost of $6 to $9 billion a year. $6 to $9 billion per year just for the lifers. These are people who are most likely never going to go home, or if they are going to go home, they're going to do 30 years or more. That's staggering. Can our tax dollars continue to support that system? I don't think so.
What else do we need to hear regarding prison populations? How does the United States compare to other countries? Mark Casson.
In my opinion, we compare very poorly. The United States has 4.4% of the world's population, the entire globe, and yet we have almost a quarter of the world's prisoners in our country, the land of the home, or the home of the free and the land of the brave. Right? I've got that backwards probably, but we incarcerated a rate of 751 people per 100,000 prisoners. Russia is next with 627. They're the closest. And then it drops all the way down. England is third at 151 people per 100,000. These are countries that are similar to our own in size and in economics and every way, and yet their incarceration rates are much lower than our own.
So in some, compared to England, the United States has 7 times the number of evil people than Great Britain.
That's what statistics would show us, but that's not the truth. It's how they treat their people who commit crimes is different than we treat them here.
We've got a caller. This is David Tulis, and you were on the air.
Yeah, great guest. I'm going to give you a term that I'm going to let you use. I'm not even going to charge you for it because it's so good.
Thanks.
The law enforcement growth industry. That's what I've called it over the years, because that's exactly what it is. And I blame it. I'm going to ask you what you think the solution is, but I blame it squarely on the left, because they ruin everything in this country, because they've turned non-crimes into crimes through the federal government. By not doing something becomes a crime. By not engaging in commerce and minding your own business and growing something in your backyard to consume it or drink it is a crime. So without even damaging another human being, we've turned those activities via the left and primarily the federal poison into crimes. And even creating private industry to house people called prisons and sell stocks that enables the statutes to create a system of criminals where there aren't criminals in order for profit and gain. So how do we fix this mess? Thanks.
That's a great question. I hope if I offend listeners, I'm going to say, number one, I don't think this is a left versus right issue. But if it is, I would point out that the greatest increase came during Republican administrations. In the state of California, 3 strikes and you're out came about when Pete Wilson was the governor, a staunch conservative Republican. And so this is an issue that has money going into both the left and the right coffers. And it's the left and the right who are making the laws that are putting people in prison now. Just most recently, the state of Georgia has determined that anyone who commits a life sentence now is going to do a minimum of 30 years before they're released, 30 years before they're even considered for release, and that's under Governor Nathan Deal, a Republican. So I don't think it's left or right. I think it's both. And what we have to do is we have to stop looking at crime, the result of crime or the adjudication of crime is only punishment. There must be a restorative justice process rather than a punitive justice process.
All right, so Mark Casson, the idea of punitive justice comes from, let's say, the non-Christian humanistic perspective. Is that right?
Yes. Throughout the history of our country in criminology, we've had, just in our lifetimes, there have been places in our country where you broke rocks. Punitive justice, you got on a chain gang and you did nothing more than break rocks. It didn't work. There's also been times in our society when we went on the humanistic side and said we need to give education, job training, all these other elements, and that also didn't work. It created smarter people who still do evil things. At the end of the day, we need to look at what I believe are more biblical ways of dealing with justice and dealing with things on a restorative nature. And what I mean by that is that if I steal your coffee mug there that costs $30, and I come back and say, David, I'm sorry, but I don't give it back to you, our relationship has not been restored. And that goes true with everyone in society. We have relationships with all of society. That's the nature of covenantal living in a community. And so when I steal from you, I need to give you back that, plus a little bit more so that I suffer loss. That's the idea, so that our relationship's restored and I don't have to be taken away and your tax dollars pay to keep me in prison. Keeping in mind that if your tax dollars are paying to keep me in prison, you're continually being victimized by the one thing I did, which was steal from you. And you don't have your cut back.
Well, it's one problem, possibly, Mark Casson, that we have a change in the type of law. We don't have a common law structure. We have a positive law structure. The people don't prosecute criminal defendants anymore, but the state does. The offended party is the state and not necessarily the victim anymore.
You're correct. And in fact, what we've done is we've taken justice away from the local level and we've made it the people of the state of Tennessee versus whomever. And at that point, sometimes the victims say, I don't want this person to be prosecuted, but it's taken out of their hands. And so there's the fundamental flaw in the system right there.
Well, the point I'm making is that it's not just the people anymore who are the victims, but the state. And look at the stylings of every case now where there's in criminal court in Tennessee, it's state versus Tulis. It's not, the people of Tennessee versus Tulis or individual victim versus Tulis. It's the state itself, which can't possibly be a victim.
Correct. And that's a fundamental thing that needs to be changed. There's not a politician or a person around, I don't think, who doesn't believe that the system needs to be changed. The question we need to ask is, why isn't it being changed? And I believe that's a fundamental economic question. People are making too much money. As I said before, just for the lifers in this country, just 159,000 lifers, every year that's $6 to $9 billion we're spending. I didn't take the time to add it all up, but it's a great estimate that it's somewhere between 25 and $50 billion a year spent on incarcerating prisoners in our country, and we're not getting anything out of that.
Well, the idea of local economy, Mark Casson of Metanoia Ministries and Prison Ministries for the Presbyterian Church in America, the biblical idea of local economy is that it's personal, that it's responsive, that you have equity. Equity, of course, is right treatment, and the biblical idea for a penal system, if there is to be one, is as you said, restitution and restoration versus punishment, and that comes out of the biblical idea that sounds to the ears of many. I think even to the ears of our listener who's not a church-going person, when he hears the idea of lex talionis, the concept of eye for eye, tooth for tooth, wound for wound, stripe for stripe, injury for injury, that just sounds somehow really harsh. And yet, really, if you think about it, what it says is that if there's a wrong done, the remedy can't be hurt more or hurt less than the wrong itself, and that's how restitution is made equally. Is that the base? To talk about that in your view if it is the prospect of reform with a biblical interest?
Sure. I'm not in favor of instituting the Old Testament law, what in Christian circles they call theonomy. What I am in favor of is looking at the Old Testament economy and seeing what principles are there that we can pull out and apply to 21st century global world economics, and how we can apply that to justice. I think the idea of restoration, restorative justice, is one that's been long since forgotten in many countries of the world. And it's something that needs to be, we, especially those interested in economics, we need to be involved in putting the word out, getting the message out, and talking to people about principles. Like I said before, the idea that if I steal something that belongs to you, if I steal something that is below your insurance rate's ability to restore that to you, you lose the item and you pay to keep me in prison. So you're actually losing on both sides of things, and there's no restoration whatsoever. Even if I'm your child and do this and I get prosecuted, there's no restoration of the relationship.
We'll talk about the origin of equity then.
Well, it's the idea of equity comes through the scripture. It's fascinating to me that the very first thing that God instituted after the flood, the very first law, was that if a man is sheds man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. That God instituted the death penalty from the very beginning. The idea that we have in our country life sentences for capital crimes is really not equitable. In my mind, it's not just. I am a believer in the death penalty, and I think we don't nearly use the death penalty as we should at all.
Explain a little bit more why it's not just.
It's not just because God says that if you shed man's blood, by man your blood shall be shed. So number one, it's something, to me, foundational to covenant society. Again, this equity. If I take someone's life, I must give up my own. I don't think it's humane to keep a man in a cage for 50 years, or, if that's how long he lives after he commits a murder. I don't think that's humane, kind, or good in any way. In the Hebrew Republic, a man who killed another man with premeditation could not buy he could not buy his way out of the wrong. However, an accidental death or a wound or an injury caused by accident could be compensated for by slavery. He could become a servant or a slave of the person he injured, or by other compensation. Not incarceration. And that's right. Incarceration in the old Republic, in the old Hebrew Republic, was not envisioned at all. Correct. In fact, I want to make that very clear. In the God's economy, you had either murder, which was the premeditated, deliberated, malice aforethought taking of another human being, or you had manslaughter, which was accidental death. Even if we were fighting and you fell down, you would have gotten only. What would happen is you would go to the city of refuge. Somebody accidentally were wrestling, you fall, you hit your head, you die. Then your family could take my life. And the only way for me to survive that is to go to the city of refuge. There were 6 of them in the nation of Israel. And the people that were there were the high priests. The priests were at the cities of refuge. So in other words, in God's mind was, if you committed an accidental homicide, you need to go to the church, to go to where there's religious people there for a period of 7 years. And after 7 years, the debt was forgiven. You were free to leave, but you could work. Your family could be there with you, and you were safe from what they called the avenger of death of the family member whom you killed. But keep in mind, in our country, we have first-degree murder, second-degree murder, in some states, third-degree murder, first-degree manslaughter, second-degree manslaughter. We've confused the issue. You either kill somebody. Explain the confusion. Well, for example, in California, for many, many years, if you killed somebody while drunk driving, that was considered second-degree murder, even though there was no premeditation, no deliberation, and no malice aforethought. And so a person still got a life sentence. They just got 15 years to life instead of the murderer getting 25 to life. Or if you commit felony homicide, which is if you're in the commission of a robbery, you kill somebody, that now becomes a death penalty case. And so, but at the end of the day, should there not be gradations in murder? There should not. God didn't have that. Okay, so the requirements are premeditation, deliberation, and malice aforethought. And then, of course, an actual death. That's right. We have 900 people. Well, we have 900 people right now. You can look it up online. Just look up people who are in prison for murder without a body. 900 of them, and they have their names listed on a website. Okay. Is in your study of scripture and law, Mark Casson, is that something that should not be a murder? How should that be treated? Well, at the end of the day, one of the other beautiful things about the scriptures was, in order for there to be a guilty verdict on a crime, there had to be at least 2 witnesses. And those 2 witnesses actually threw the first stone at a stoning, which was the preferred method of death. It was a public. Very public. It was a public execution in which the people of that particular community took part in the execution after the verdict was rendered and after there were at least 2 witnesses. I would say in our modern society, I'm willing to use DNA evidence as a witness. In other words, but there better be one more witness. And there are many cases that are circumstantial and DNA only. There's no eyewitnesses or anything else. But in a case in which there's not a body, if you can't prove a death, how can you put somebody in prison without a body? There has to be corpus delicti. There should be a body, but we don't. And that's, to me, is a sad state of our criminal justice system. Well, this is David Tulis. I do thank you for giving us a couple of minutes of your time here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We're brought to you by Ducks, the Indoor Air Professionals. Call Ducks at 876-9907. That's 876-9907 to have the mold, mildew, and bug body parts removed from your ductwork. Mark Casson has been in prison before and is involved in the Christian ministry to men, and I suppose to women who are incarcerated. Give us a sketch, Mark Casson, of what you do
in the average week, where do you go? What people do you visit? What are you going about saying? Who are you, and why should my listener care?
Oh, great questions. I am I'm an ex-prisoner, and I go in an average week. I contact churches. I talk to them, people who are interested in doing prison ministry. I talk to anyone who will listen about the necessity of the church to be involved. We have a great prison ministry to prisoners at Walker State Prison down in Rock Spring, Georgia. It's a faith and character prison. It's doing some amazing things there. And we have more than 107 men from 37 different churches who go every other week to minister life on life with prisoners there. We also have a correspondence education ministry where we have courses set up, and it's life on life, one person out here ministering to one prisoner. And that's been a fantastic ministry as well. We have about 800 students around the nation, 500 people from 150 churches all working together for this common ministry. I help churches start up their own prison ministries. I help them work through the various issues and things like that. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that people are made in the image of God. And so in that construct of image bearers, the Imago Dei, we are called to treat them as such. And so when you restore the dignity of a man or a woman who's in prison, breaking rocks is meaningless work, but using rocks to build a building restores their dignity and allows them to function as a human being, then they will come out here and continue to function as a human being. But when they go and put in 150 applications and every one of them says, have you ever been convicted of a felony, and they can't find work, there's little recourse left at some point. I'm not justifying people who return to crime, but I've seen the harshness of the world out here in its unforgiving attitude once you get a felony on your record. And I think it just needs to change. And I try to serve as a voice for that change with people. In my own life, and some of you may think I'm a hypocrite here, but I was facing the death penalty from the United States Army, and I was facing life plus 24 years or plus 14 years in the state of California for the crime of premeditated murder for hire. And so when I was converted to Christ, I read my little pocket New Testament with the Psalms and Proverbs 6 times over the course of a 3-day weekend, Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On Monday morning, I went to court and I told my attorney I was going to plead guilty. And in shock, she said, I can't let you do that. And I said, why not? And she said, well, the best case scenario, you're going to do 14 years first, and then you're going to get a life sentence, which is going to be a minimum of another 15 years. So you're looking at 30 years before you get out of California. Worst case scenario, they turn you over to the Army and they execute you. And I said, it doesn't matter. I'm a Christian now, and I'm going to accept my punishment. God doesn't want me to lie. I had very little tiny faith, but I had enough to know that God didn't want me to lie. So I went into court. She stood up and she said that I would change my plea from not guilty to guilty. Now, this was jury selection day for my trial. A lot of people. It was a big case. And the district attorney, after I had pled guilty, stood up in open court and he changed the complaint against me. He amended it and he dropped 3 charges against me. And I just got the life sentence. 6 weeks later, I got a letter from the Army reducing me in rank to private and giving me a discharge under Chapter 14.5, misconduct under conditions other than honorable but not dishonorable. So great grace was poured into me. But to this day, I believe I should have been executed. And it's only by God's grace that I'm not. And it doesn't change the fact that I still believe in execution as the just means of punishment for premeditated murder.
We're talking with Mark Casson. Mark, let me ask you about Kelly Gissendaner. She, like you, was convicted of her sins by the Holy Spirit in prison and repented. And yet last week she was executed. I think it was Monday. I'm not sure exactly when it was, but about a week ago.
It was Tuesday.
Was it Tuesday?
Mm-hmm.
This Tuesday?
Last
Tuesday, right? Last Tuesday, 2 Tuesdays ago, she was she lost her life, was extinguished in capital punishment. Was hers a just punishment?
It was a just punishment. God had changed her and used her for many things, but at the end of the day, she was sentenced to death. And I'd like to talk more about her after the break because I think it's an interesting look at our justice system. Some questions there, but I will say this that. I have friends who actually worked with her from Emory University, one of the professors there that became a close confidant of hers. And I as a human, don't want anyone to be executed. However, I, as a Christian, also want justice to be served. And so I think in her case, justice was served.
And so your support of the death penalty in the Kelly Gissendaner case is to the glory of God and his character.
It
in
is.
the end.
Yes. And I believe it is the duty of the state to bear the sword. Romans 13 says they don't bear it in vain, but they do bear it to punish the evildoer.
This is David Tulis. We do thank you for giving us a couple of minutes of your time here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, the station that covers local economy and the free market. This is a very important local economy issue, and the owner of local economy, which I'd say is God, has a stake in what people do in the way of reforming an ungodly justice system and an untoward penal system. I've got some things I want you to hear. Hang on.
After areas of patchy, dense fog, another warm and dry day expected for your Thursday. Highs back into the lower 80s. Tonight, a few more clouds, milder lows, lower 60s. For Friday, a few scattered afternoon showers and thinner showers will march through. Highs upper 70s, drier and cooler for the weekend. Did you know that you could purchase a home now with little or nothing down? Find your dream home with McBriar Realty. Call McBriar Realty at 706-657-2353 or McBriarRealty.com. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Tired of insurance companies? Tired of doctors that won't spend time with you? Do something different. Leave the sick care model of medicine and come to Dr. Danielle Mitchell, the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health, where we're interested in long-term health solutions, not the quick fixes. Come see me, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, at the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health. I'm all about the long-term healthcare solutions and doing what's best. On the web, you can find me at ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. That's ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Or call us at 875-1005, 875-1005, or find us on social media, Facebook, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, or the ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Let's go, ya!
Hey, all you gun enthusiasts! Carter Shooting Supply has just bought a crazy load of guns and is having a crazy huge sale event going on now. A huge inventory of Smith & Wesson, Glock, Ruger, and Taurus, all on sale. Taurus guns have a mail-in rebate for $25 to $50. All long guns and all ammo on sale, too, just in time for hunting season. Come in and take advantage of this crazy huge sale event going on now at Carter Shooting Supply, or shop from home by going to CarterShootingSupply.com. Highway 58, Harrison. Check our prices before you buy.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
We do the best quality work. We have the best customer service, the most competitive prices around.
Cell Surgeon, a painless operation to fix your sick device.
Well, if you have a cheap charger or something that's not really designed for your phone, it can mess with your battery. It can actually fry your phone. So you need to make sure you have a quality product that's going to be designed for your phone.
Cell Surgeon, your smartphone doctor's in the house at the Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
If you charge it in the morning and, by noon, it's at, 50% under normal use. That means your battery's pretty much dead. And once you've reached that point, it starts to deteriorate.
Cell Surgeon, call smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
Don't take it in the bathroom. Don't ever put it in your back pocket. And don't charge your phone while you're sleeping.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Call 423-668-0100 or go to cellphonerepairchattanooga.com. That's cellphonerepairchattanooga.com. Cell Surgeon, your smart device doctor is in the house.
Here you are, working to keep your customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are. flapping about you like vultures, get help from Eric Pelton and his team of accountants at E.J. Pelton Company. Audits, letters, proposed return changes, 1099s, penalty threats. Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more of what you've earned. EJPelton.com. Offices on Brainerd Road and in Soddy Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's E.J. Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the Southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had
You give us
it
12
made.
minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Soddy Daisy, Chattanooga.
CBS News, I'm Stephen Portnoy, live on Capitol Hill, where in just a few moments, Volkswagen's top U.S. executive is due to apologize to Congress for cars that cheat on emissions tests. In his prepared testimony, Volkswagen U.S. CEO Michael Horn admits Volkswagen software had its diesel-fueled cars emit less pollution in lab tests than on the road. And Horn will say he heard about the potential problem some 18 months before Volkswagen alerted American regulators. CBS News transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve is here on Capitol Hill.
You will hear talk about accepting responsibility. What you may not hear talk about is the specifics about what happened, why it happened, and how it went on for so many years.
I'm Stephen Portnoy, live on Capitol Hill. Now with more CBS News, here's Frank Settapani.
German government agents looking for evidence that could identify the VW officials involved in manipulating emissions tests have carried out searches in Wolfsburg, where VW has its headquarters, and in other locations. Here at home, GM has some unusual advice for people who bought Buick, Chevrolet, and GMC SUVs. CBS's Jeff Gilbert has that.
Owners of about 6,400 GM SUVs are being told don't use the windshield wipers because the motor could catch fire. GM going so far as to say if it's rainy, we will come pick up your vehicle.
The Chrysler and the UAW have hammered out a second tentative contract with 40,000 workers. The rank-and-file torpedoed the first one. NATO officials, alarmed by Russia's new military role in the Syrian civil war and other actions they see as overly aggressive, have decided to increase the alliance's rapid response force by 40,000 troops. Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says it's a clear message to all NATO members.
NATO will defend you. NATO is on the ground. NATO is ready.
If you heat with natural gas, you could see lower bills this winter. Industry spokesmen say an abundant supply could mean hundreds of dollars in savings on average.
Only once in the past decade have the bills going to be lower than they are going to be this winter.
A retail industry trade group expects holiday season spending to increase by less than 4% this year. It was up a little bit more than that last year. Rivers gorged with water from last week's historic deluge are surging toward the South Carolina lowlands. Emergency official Scott Hawkins says they're a threat to cause serious new flooding over the next couple of days.
This water is on the move. It's making its way down the state to the coast. What that means, though, is that it puts a stress on new dams and new areas.
Belarusian writer Svetlana Alexievich has won the Nobel Prize in Literature. Sarah Darius with the Royal Swedish Academy says the judges were impressed by her chronicles of the Soviet era and the years that followed.
She's offering us a history of emotions, a history of the soul, if you wish.
In early trading on Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down about 20 points. This is CBS News.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? I'm Jim O'Connor, independent life insurance agent specializing in term life insurance. There's been a price war between the major life insurance companies. If you've had your term life policy more than 2 years, you may be paying too much. For example, a male age 45, non-tobacco user issue preferred best, $1 million of coverage is only $56 a month guaranteed level for 10 years. Or a male age 50, non-tobacco user issue preferred best, $500,000 of coverage is only $91 a month guaranteed level for 20 years. The life insurance industry is going through exciting changes. Make sure you're not paying too much for your term insurance. For new or replacement term life insurance, call for a free quote. 800-799-0903. That's 800-799-0903. Don't pay too much for your term insurance. Call 800-799-0903 or visit my website at term22.com. That's term22.com. Rates based on standard underwriting and may vary by state.
Press baron Rupert Murdoch sparked a social media brushfire with something he said about the current president and the man he'd like to succeed him. CBS News White House correspondent Pam Coulter.
In a tweet praising GOP presidential candidate Ben Carson and his wife, Murdoch said, "What about a real black president who can properly address the racial divide?" Some replies on Twitter called it offensive and divisive. The 84-year-old media magnate later suggested there was no slight intended, tweeting apologies, no offense meant, personally find both men charming. The White House took note of the apology tweet, but otherwise declined comment.
A manhunt is taking place around Fort Meade, Maryland, where a man trying to get away from the police last night crashed a stolen car through an unmanned gate and then took off on foot. Fort Meade, just outside Washington, is home to the National Security Agency. Only mission-essential personnel are being allowed on the base. Nearby schools are closed, and residents have been told to stay indoors. Frank Sedapani, CBS News.
If you're a business owner or HR executive,
you give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
There's a story in Nooga.com today by Cameron Morgan, and the story, I think it was yesterday, the story is about Circle K and Couche-Tard, which is the name of a company, Couche-Tard, Circle K, Couche-Tard, is taking over the branding of Kangaroo Express stations. There are 22 in the area, and it'll go for nine months. The change will affect, according to Nooga.com, 1,500 Kangaroo Express stations in 13 states across the Southeast. This is David Tulis, and we are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We're brought to you by Chattanooga Sports Institute, the local economy provider of medical care, of orthopedics and urgent care, and also family member care with Dr. Danielle Mitchell, who has every other Wednesday just after my show a terrific program the doctor is in. And she runs Chattanooga Sports Institute. Call her, make an appointment to find out about her cash-only model. It's super cheap. It works for people who are not involved in insurance or refuse to be involved in insurance or are sick of insurance. Danielle Mitchell, 875-1005. That's 875-1005. And her show is called This Doc is in the House, and we'd love to have you join us here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We're members of Trade Bank of Chattanooga, by the way, the smarter way to barter and to improve your cash flow. We trade among 400 local businesses, great and small, national and local. Call Jürgen Mutz, the man who sounds like he should be in charge of Volkswagen, but he's just in charge of Trade Bank here. Is the German with the southern twang, and his number is 877-2202, 877-2202. We're talking with Mark Casson, who is a former prison inmate. He was convicted of conspiracy to murder in California. He is the executive director of Metanoia Ministries here. He's married, has 2 children. He's 48 years old and lives with his wife and family. His wife's name is Raylene, lives in East Ridge. He's also the director of prison ministries for the PCA. The PCA is the Presbyterian Church in America, the more reformed body in that Christian group. And we're talking about the idea of courts and judges and prisons. Do prisons fit in a just society? And the answer he is strongly suggesting is no, they don't. And the reason they don't is because they multiply the offenses, not just to the victim of a crime, but to the society in general. And we want to ask you, Mark Casson, a question. The listener has a question, and that is this. Let's say that you, Mark, have been negligent, and you have done something to cause the listener the loss of his eye. It's a negligent act, and you, Mark, you've been indicted. You've been indicted by Hamilton County grand jury for a crime. What is it that's going to happen in this case, and what is the alternative, Mark Casson?
Well, what's most likely going to happen, depending on the circumstances, let's just say that you, the listener, and I were having a discussion, and the discussion got heated, and actually it didn't get heated, but as I slammed my hand on the table, I actually hit my fork, and it flew over the table and stuck you in the eye, and you lose your eye. I had no intention to do that, but it was an accidental thing. Now, me being the type of person I am, I want to make sure that you get compensated for the loss of your eye. Obviously, you're going to have medical bills. You're going to lose the sight of your eye, the use of your eye. And so I think that there's some way that I would be able to help you for a very long time.
But your desires aside, what is going to actually happen? You're being indicted. All right,
yes,
tell us what
I've been
happens.
indicted because I was careless and because I was angry when I hit the table. That's what the court is going to look at, that I have an intention to do this. And so I am going to be put on trial at a cost. I'm actually, what's going to happen in our country, or now in Tennessee most likely, is I'm going to be overcharged. They're going to get me with malice aforethought. They're going to get me with assault with a deadly weapon. They're going to give me intent to do great bodily harm. And then they're going to come at me and make a deal. They're going to offer me a deal for what I really should have been charged with. They're going to offer that and say, here, well, if you just plead guilty without a trial, you'll save us the cost of the trial, and in return, we're going to only sentence you to 6 years at halftime. So you're going to do 3 years on that 6 years. And so that's the way the system works right now. We overcharge all the time, and then we
that's called charge stacking.
It is charge stacking. And then we plea it down so that we don't actually have to do the work to prove a case, because it takes a lot of the court system is set up under the presumption of innocence. Guilty, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. It's supposed to be that way in theory, and it takes a lot of evidence to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. But especially if you have charges, when you charge somebody with a premeditated act, you have to be able to prove that they, in some reasonable way, that they premeditated it. Now, did I know where the fork was exactly on the table? So that, do I have practice in hitting it so that it'll fly right across and hit the guy in the eye? I mean, obviously those are hard things to prove. But in any event, the problem is this: you still don't have your eye, and you're paying for it all yourself. Now what will happen is the court's going to render a judgment. I owe the court X amount of dollars that goes into a victim's restitution fund. And they may say that I owe you $10,000, or you could sue me privately and I would owe you $100,000, whatever it is. Well, what are the likelihood that you're going to get that $100,000 from me after I get out of prison, serving 3 years, and after I have a felony record in which it's most likely it's going to take me a while to find a job. And if I do, it's going to be a level entry job that's not going to pay me enough to support myself, let alone paying you money. So at the end of the day, our relationship's never been restored. You're still without an eye, and you have a mountain of debt of your own to pay for those bills. And
the listener has to take the initiative to sue you separately in a civil action. He has to engage a lawyer, find a way of making the lawyer accept him on retainer, because the lawyer doesn't really want to take that case because he knows the victim, the defendant, that's you're now in prison. You're not going to have means. You don't seem to be a man of substance before the case arrived in the court's notice, and he's fearful that he really needs to be paid up front with a retainer fee of $10,000 or so to get the thing started, because he's wary of dividing the loot afterwards, not suspecting that there won't be much loot. So there's that separate burden that the listener would have to initiate to try to get something from you. But this is not a good situation.
No, it's not. And in fact, the most famous case in American jurisprudence that deals with this very issue was the case of O.J. Simpson. When O.J. Simpson was found not guilty in a court of law of murder, the family then sued him. And what was fascinating was the not guilty verdict was not allowed to be presented as evidence in that case. The judge said that's something that can't be presented. And so he was then found guilty and sued, and now owes the Goldman family, I believe it was $2.5 million or some exorbitant amount, which he has not paid them very much of at all. He lost everything in defending himself. And so we see the system failing right there. And so in God's economy, justice was dealt with at an individual basis. If I wronged you, the listener, then you, the listener, had the responsibility of bringing me to the judge and telling the matter before the judge, and the judge would adjudicate the matter. And if I stole your car, I was paying you back basically a car and a half. I paid you the car, and then I paid another half so as to basically feel the loss, to suffer the loss that I made you suffer. And if I didn't have a car and a half to give you back, then what was going to happen was I was going to be enslaved to you. I would do my normal job to provide for my family, but then I would spend hours and hours and hours paying the debt back. The judge would say, okay, I owe you $10,000 for a car and a half. And that $10,000 would be worked off at a rate of $10 an hour. So I would owe you that 1,000 hours of my time as a slave. Instead of that, which I think is very equitable, what we do now is lock that person in prison and he becomes a slave to the state, which is something that's absolutely legal. It's constitutional that slavery is
let's get it clear here, Mark Casson. Slavery is legal in the United States.
Absolutely. Slavery was never outlawed in total. The amendment says that slavery shall be prohibited except as punishment for crimes committed against the state, whereby you have duly been convicted. So yes, we have, in fact, most states in the United States have a great slave population. They just don't use them wisely.
So what is, talk a little bit about the proper use of slaves that are owned by the state in the prison system. What is the story there? I know many states use prisoners as slaves to produce things. Talk a little bit about that industry, Mark Casson.
Well, typically what we use the slaves to produce, for example, in the state of Georgia, in Northwest Georgia, right here, we're within an earshot of you, the listener, Walker State Faith and Character-Based Prison, they have a metal fabrication plant in which they have prisoners making all the brushed light fixtures, those nice 2-foot-long light bulbs that hang in every office building in the state of Georgia. Those are made by prisoners who are not paid a dime. And that's great. That is a good use of the labor. I wish they would pay them a little bit. But at the same time, why wouldn't they make more of those or have factories in every prison so that they could sell them to private industry? And now you have revenue dollars coming in to fund the prisons. You could pay the prisoners. Prisoners would love to make $1 an hour. And if they were forced to spend save a little of that for their release, imagine a prisoner does 5 years at $1 an hour on a given job. He could have a saved up bank account.
He could save $40 a week.
Yeah, $40 a week. And at $40 per week over 5 years,
$2,000 a year.
$10,000 he could walk out of prison with. That's enough to get clothing, an apartment, a vehicle, and get set up to live out here until he could find a job. How wise is that? If we're going to have a prison system that's going to lock people up and we're getting longer and longer sentences, then why not lock them up in such a way that they can function when they get out and they have a job skill, they have a job, they actually work for this industry making these things, and that way when they get out they don't have a 10-year blank in their resume. They have something there that they've produced that they can say, I've done this.
Well, Mark Casson, we've wandered just a slight bit from the story that you're telling. Here we have you've committed a crime. You've knocked out our listener's eye in an angry conversation at table. You hit the table, a fork jumped up and hit him in the eye, and he's injured. However, you're prosecuted. You're indicted, you're prosecuted, and convicted. You're given a 6-year term. You serve 4 years for assault and a couple other crimes. And the victim, the listener, is still out. How is it that the biblical model of justice, of which you are a student, how does it envision that the listener is made whole in this broken relationship with you? How does that work?
Well, obviously, I cannot return their eye. Although in today's society, with the surgeries the way they are, maybe we could give him another eye. I don't know. In that case, an eye for an eye would be a great idea. I would transplant my eye into him if he wanted it.
And you would get the new one from the dead donor, right?
But at the end of the day, in the Old Testament, the judge who was appointed by Moses or by the people later on, they would then determine what the value of that eye was, and that would be the dollar amount attached. There was no incarceration. I do think in our country we need to have incarceration for the purposes of awaiting trial. That's the only reason you should be in jail for anything, is that you're awaiting trial. But at that point, once the trial is done, and it should be done swiftly, once it's done, it should all be handled between the person, the offender, and the victim, and there should be nothing owed to the state.
What you're saying, Mark Casson, is essentially that there should be local economy in the operation of the courts. The victim and the offender, with the judge as kind of intermediary, coming together and say, okay, what is your eye worth? How can we compensate you for your eye? We can't restore it. And though equity might require Mark Casson, the defendant, to give up his eye in payment to you, there can be a way of avoiding that injury and making a benefit to both parties in the way of compensation. talk a bit more about that. That would be equitable. The value of the eye to, well, who would set the value for the eye, Mark? Would it be the state, or would it be you set the value of the eye by saying my eye is worth this much to me, and I really don't want to lose my eye, so I'm going to make you an offer. My eye is worth $150,000 to me. I will offer to pay you, the man I injured, $150,000 if you let me keep my left eyeball.
I think number one, we don't have a prosecutor in this scenario, and there's no defense attorney. It is two people who go and tell their story to the judge, and then they may call their witnesses. If there were other people at the table who saw the incident, then those witnesses give their testimony, and then the judge has to sit down and take all of that into account. Are some eyes more valuable than others? Sure, I think they are, actually. I think a sniper's eye is really important to his
or
function,
a surgeon's.
Or a surgeon's eye. It's very important to his function, more so than a truck driver. Nothing wrong with the truck driver or the race car driver, but you can drive a truck with one eye. You don't need to have two eyes. But at the end of the day, I think in general, the judge...
Maybe a waiter. I mean, a truck driver needs to have both eyes to measure distance. Maybe a waiter.
Maybe a waiter, but
or an accountant.
In any event, or a lawyer. Just kidding. I love lawyers. In any event, we do need to, at the end of the day, there could be a scale that says all eyes are worth this much in the idea of restitution. And so,
well, that's not a very free market solution. All eyes are worth the same, because that's not true.
Well, it isn't true. But at the end of the day, how do you set the value of a surgeon's eye?
Well, it would be you, the defendant, setting the value, and that's what. Just want to mention. This is I'm holding up a book for my viewer on YouTube. It's called "Victims' Rights: The Biblical View of Civil Justice" by Dr. Gary Dorth. He's an economist and a very noted writer. And he says that in that discussion there that Mark Casson's describing, the value is determined initially by the man who's going to lose his eye, and that would be the defendant in that case. He says my eye is worth this much to me. Can I pay you this much to keep it? And then of course the answer has to be from the victim, and he says, well, okay, or no, it's actually worth more. So you have finally a financial negotiation on the worth of the eye to the man who's about to lose it in this case. We have a call. Hang on just a second. Caller, you're on the air. This is David Tulis. What's on your mind?
Okay, I'm confused. I'm walking in downtown Chattanooga. I get into a confrontation. Somebody knocks my eye out. And then I sue him for damages. Well, I can do that now. But we're cutting out the prosecutor, correct?
In a private suit, you are cutting out the prosecutor. Right, you are prosecuting the case yourself.
He's committed a damage, though. What if he doesn't have the money to pay for my eye? Even if he does. He assaulted.
That's the point that we are making, is that I would then become enslaved to you to work. If the judge set the value of your eye at $100,000 and I only have $10,000, I owe you $90,000. So the judge would say, okay, at $10 per hour, you owe this man X number of hours to pay for this eye, which means from now on,
track him down when he doesn't show up for work. You can't get people that you pay well to show up. So now this guy is a drug dealer. How am I going to track him down? I'm going to go to the judge. It takes me 3 months to get into court. And then he's going to give him a pass. I mean, why shouldn't he go to prison, or why shouldn't he suffer? Because if this is beyond giving me money. I want to go back there and beat the crap out of him for knocking my eye out. And if the justice system doesn't punish him, I'm going to do it. I don't care about the money.
And so if I understand your argument correctly, because there are some difficulties in getting the person possibly to do the work, then that's a reason we shouldn't have it. And I would say there's always difficulties now. People don't show up for court when they have subpoenas after them. So we're not removing that problem from the system. But what I am saying is that at the end of the day, it seems more just to me that you are compensated for the loss and pain and suffering that you feel, rather than having a state put this man in prison for X number of years in which he can't support his family. You're going to do that, in which he can't pay you back, in which your dollars are going to keep him there.
Two Tuesdays ago, Kelly Gissendaner was executed in Georgia. Mark Casson, you are the director of prison ministries for the PCA, the Presbyterian Church in America, and she was a Christian. My listeners wondering why some liberal Christians rallied around her, urging that she not suffer that punishment. But your take is that she was deserving of death, as she had been involved in a capital crime for which there's no there's no way to compensate your way, buy your way out of that. She did deserve capital punishment in Georgia.
That's correct. And in fact, some people have asked the question, rightfully so, why did the guy who actually committed the murder, why is he doing life in prison and Kelly Gissendaner was executed and she did not do the murder? And one answer to that is that sadly, she didn't make the right decision regarding an offer that was made to her. She received an offer, a deal, if you will, for life in prison if she didn't go to trial and if she would testify against the other guy, and she refused that. And so she went to trial and she was found guilty and then sentenced to death. He accepted the deal. The deal was made to both of them. She turned it down. So early on, she could have changed the course of her future had she accepted that deal. But more importantly is that I asked the question, why is she the first woman executed in the state of Georgia in 70 years? And she was the only person on death row in Georgia, when Georgia has 12, I don't remember the number now, but Georgia has 1,000 or 1,300 people on death row. She was the only woman. I think that's inequitable when you consider that women commit violent crimes, murder for hire, murder themselves, etc. And the law is not blind to their gender.
The law should be blind, Mark?
It should be. We don't take into account a male from a female when they're committing crimes.
Do you recommend any books, right quick, for my listener on this topic, or any authors that are of value to you?
You put me on the spot, and you know I don't have one. So,
well, I'd recommend Gary North, who is the author of Victims' Rights: A Biblical View of Civil Justice. It's maybe 20 years old or so, and I've gotten a lot of benefit from that author. He is a Christian economist and does a lot of study in the scriptures. My name is David Tulis, and I do thank you for giving us a couple minutes of your time. Mark Casson of Metanoia Ministries, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Mark Casson was at one time a prisoner and faced capital punishment, but he is now a free man working with those in the prison system.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
After areas of patchy dense fog, another warm and dry day expected for your Thursday. Highs back into the lower 80s. Tonight, a few more clouds, milder lows, lower 60s. For Friday, a few scattered afternoon showers and thinner showers will march through. Highs upper 70s, drier and cooler for the weekend. Did you know that you could purchase a home now with little or nothing down? Find your dream home with McBriar Realty. Call McBriar Realty at 706-657-2353 or McBriarRealty.com. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
The Fed raising rates, China's economy in trouble. Don't let headlines derail your long-term financial strategy. I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Patrick Neal. At Edward Jones, we provide the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing. Stop by my office next to the Target Shopping Center in Hickson, or call me at 423-870-7894. That's Patrick Neal at 870-7894. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
That smells so good. Smells like a big Italian dinner. But you're going to walk out with two. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. 2 pizzas. You get the 2 for the price of 1 at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. My favorite Italian restaurant of all the time. Now, I'm living in Hickson. I go to Raphael's right down the street in Hickson Pike, right near Highland Plaza. You're in Saudi Daisy? Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria in Saudi Daisy. Just next to Saudi Daisy Church of God. Hey, you're on Signal Mountain. There's a Raphael's Italian Restaurant and a Pizzeria. It's right on the main drag. You're going to love the pasta, the pizza. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. 2 pizzas. You get the 2 for the price of 1 at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Tastes so good. Bring the whole family. Come on, Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Mangia. Salute.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, myself for all the action.
Fox News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Flooding in South Carolina estimated to have destroyed more than $300 million worth of crops. This as conditions remain dangerous to people.
First responders are shuttling food and supplies to an isolated rural community in Georgetown County. Although surrounded by water, about 200 residents have chosen to remain in their homes, which are on relatively high ground.
Fox Radio's Jonathan Seri in Columbia County. Hillary Clinton's private email server, which stored information from when she was Secretary of State, targeted by hackers, according to a congressional document obtained by the AP.
The attacks reportedly originated in China, South Korea, and Germany after she left office in 2013. It's believed software blocked the attacks, but Senate Homeland Security Chairman Republican Ron Johnson says there was a period around that time when threat protection was not installed.
Fox Radio's Rachel Sutherland, and claims for first-time jobless help last week dropping. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
Make sure you go to Nooganomics.com, our chief sponsor, the website of which I'm the very mild-mannered editor, the man formerly with Newsprint Inc. on his fingertips, having been for many years an editor and earlier a reporter in the newspaper business. My name is David Tulis. We are brought to you by Sky Aerial Services at 521-0284. That's Sky Aerial Services. Have a drone expert photograph your event, your lot, your building, your daily walk, perhaps. And also, if you want to take your daily walk and you want to have a 22 caliber pistol tucked under your belt in a way that no one can see, go to Carter Shooting Supply, and the experts at Carter's will fit you just to the caliber, just to the holster that you need for your circumstances, whether it's walking about and you want a little 22 long rifle, or whether you want the Desert Eagle, the 50 caliber pistol made in Israel, for which you need to have a wheelbarrow trailing after you to carry that very heavy weapon. This is David Tulis. And also, just as a way of consumer news, make sure that if you have a cell phone problem, that you go to Cell Surgeon, which is next to Old Chicago's Pizza in Northgate Mall at 668-0100. That's 668-0100. And Dr. Adam Disbro, the surgeon, is there with his stalwart colleague Anthony, and they'll take care of you in a jiffy. Many repairs just take half an hour, so you can be in and out and not spend a lot of money. Great deals at Cell Surgeon. Also open on Sunday. My name is David Tulis, and we cover local economy and the free market in Chattanooga and beyond. We have been making note of the dispersal program today over the county. It is beyond the pale of prying eyes and done outside of normal air flight channels. There are probably 100 jets that have flown over Chattanooga in the course of this morning, depositing their dust, their cloud cover which if it's in the lower atmosphere, the troposphere will come down in a day or two. That's why the treatment has to be continually renewed, and the clouds renewed, because they're not entirely from the hand of God. They are from compressed tanks that are carried about in the bodies of these jets, the dispersal by nozzle. The aerosol is called aerosol geoengineering. And what happens is that the particulate matter, the trash, if you will, that's put up there, is aerosolized. And aerosols, the word sol refers to solvent. So you have, let's just say, a half a ton of dust, let's say coal ash, fly ash from coal. And let's say if you put it in a tank, it fills half the tank. Okay, so what do? Well, to make that get out of the tank and to be dispersed as cloud cover over downtown and over Chester Frost Park, you have to put solvent in. So what you do is you find the right kind of solvent. It could be acetone, it could be some other material, and you inject that into the tank. What happens is it's under pressure, and the solvent makes all the particles stand equidistantly apart. So they are then suspended in the air, if you will, in the injected air with the solvent in the tank, right? This tank is part of the plane. The plane's been modified to carry these tanks and to disperse the aerosolized agent. And we have been reporting here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, the break in the story. The break in the story is that the agent is part of the federal war on global warming. The federal agent is coal fly ash, produced by the tens of thousands of tons. TVA, I think a couple years ago, sold 2-some million tons of fly ash on the open market. It is a waste product, which I'm going to be reporting in the next day or so, brings up to $45 a ton. I think it's $20 to $40 a ton. The figure I'm having is an ancient figure from 2002 or something. I'm not sure why I couldn't find fresher data on the price of this trash, but it is trash. It is dangerous. It's dangerous to your health. This affects what you breathe, right? This aerosol dispersal over Chattanooga is bad for your health. We've reported on that. The only news outlet, the number 7 media outlet in Chattanooga to report it, is Nooganomics, Nooganomics.com, the website for the man who matters. And we are asking you, my listener, to look up today and ask, is this normal? Is what I'm seeing natural? Is this a crisscross patchwork of contrails, which contrails are not very often made anymore with the improvement in jet engines. I think it's called turbo bypass engine. Contrails are a thing of the past. Engines have been improved to allow for military applications the quiet approach, right, of your jet attack machine. No trail left behind, harder to see, harder to find on radar. And contrails are kind of a thing of the past. And so we have these trails that are policy. They are policy skies. We have a policy skies. Is the sky a wreck today? Is it a wreck? Or is it something that you can't notice? The people at the Chattanooga Times-Free Press, I'm thinking of Pam Sohn, a long-time writer about environmental issues. I'd say that she, now the editorialist on the left-hand page of that newspaper, she and the Environmental Defense Fund, Greenpeace, the Chattanooga Organized for Action Verb group, all of which have an environmental interest, look up. They don't see anything. They don't see anything. And the reason they don't is there's a kind of judicial blindness, I think, that affects the most ardent progressive, who has in view the state as the solution to all problems. Just pass a statute, pass a regulation, create another executive agency with an alphabet, a soup name, and we are reaching nirvana. We have reached salvation. We have finally solved all of our problems. And the progressive looks up. He can't see what you, my listener, I hope you, my listener, are starting to see by the power of my suggestion here. And the poisons there are 3, the triplicate poison, aluminum, strontium, and barium. And these elements are not regulated. They are not regulated. This is bioactive aluminum, according to Dr. Herndon. Find out more about this very amazing story at Nooganomics.com. My name is David Tulis, and I'm the environmental reporter here in Chattanooga that's covering this topic. And I don't invite others to cover it, partly because I want to raise myself in your esteem. And if I'm the only one covering it, then maybe you'll come back. That is, of course, our goal here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, that you come back, and even more so, that you patronize our advertisers and tell, for example, the waiter at Delia's that you listen to the radio, and you've heard about Delia's on the radio, and you can throw my name at that waitress, if you can remember it. It's David Tulis. Delia's offers authentic Mexican food in South Saudi Daisy. She's on Dayton Pike. The she I'm referring to is Maria Hernandez, a genuine Mexican, and she loves her adopted country here, and has the best tamales, the best enchiladas, the best quesadillas. And if you are new in town, connected with the German capitalist venture here, then you want to make sure that you enjoy what Americans enjoy when they eat south of the border, and that's Delia's authentic Mexican food. And the special today is the burrito plate. It's $1 off, number 15 on the menu, and that's just $5.50. Mention us and you get a free iced tea. My name is David Tulis, and I do thank you for giving us a couple of minutes of your time. And my argument is that we face a national cataclysm from intervention. We have intervention in the sky, and with coal ash being deposited over our city. This is my following the lead of our latest reporting. And we face in the financial sector interventions that are also deleterious to your health, damaging to your health. And one local economy answer is that you have your own business. You need to start getting serious about your plan B. And that could be a franchise. We have on our station Bruce Krebs every other Wednesday. In fact, this next Wednesday, we'll have Entrepreneur Hour with Bruce. Bruce Krebs, Entrepreneur Source. Call him today and get on his calendar, okay? Call him today. Bruce Krebs, Entrepreneur Source, 875-5621. That's 875-5621. And make sure you say that you are a listener here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, online, hotnewstalkradio.com, and on your smartphone through the radio app. It's called TuneIn Radio, TuneIn Radio, and it's a free app. Just put us in as a favorite. My name is David Tulis. There are a couple of stories about dentistry that are, I think, real interesting, very favorable to the local economy and the free market. And one is about out of Cleveland, according to Sarah Sittery, the reporter for WRCB TV, that's Channel 3, and it's a dentist practice called the Caris Dental Clinic. It treating patients who are those in poverty, people who are poor. You could say low income, you could say disadvantaged, but let's just say poor. Okay, poor people who need X-rays, tooth extractions, fillings, cleanings, all performed at the Caris Dental Clinic in Cleveland for $20. I knew that going to a regular dentist was not an option, said Cassandra Jordan, talking to TV3, describing tough times after moving to Cleveland 2 years ago. She was dealing with a major pain every day. Several teeth needed to be pulled, but she didn't have a job. She didn't have insurance. I just felt like the tooth pain was something I would probably have to suffer with until it fell out. She said she met Dr. James Olson, who agreed to treat her at the health department for $15, and several teeth were pulled, and so she now has the option of going to Caris Dental Clinic, which opened in a month ago, and has a limit on whom it can treat depending on your resources. And it's the Caris Dental Clinic on Broad Street, and you can have a financial screening by calling 457-8024. That's 457-8024. And the other story that touches on dental services comes from the world of the Seventh-day Adventists here in Chattanooga. There was a health clinic that was very well covered. TV3 has a good story by Greg Glover, one of the anchors, and it was called Impact Your Health. It's It was this I believe it was this last weekend. 2,000 people received free health care, and everything from diabetes checks to blood pressure screenings to eye exams. Dentists were on hand as well. 363 procedures were done. There were oral surgeries. That's quite a few. The clinic also provided 500 prescription eyeglasses for those people in need. There was a bit of a strained mood at the end when the line went longer than the time available for service. Anthony McKeef was in one of those in line. He says, "I was down here before the sun come up. It didn't happen, but I can say I got a real good massage in there, But what is the good of a massage when you still can't hear?" He's a man who has who's hard of hearing. Ashley Hills was another person who was turned away, as Greg Glover tells us in his story. This was Sunday. They should have been more organized in getting people in. Ashley Hills says she was turned away for a dental procedure. I understand they're trying to help. They may have helped a lot of people, but there was a lot of people that had to go home yesterday and today. But it is charity work, and that is something that we need to understand comes out of Christianity. It comes out of the idea of people who are caring for others, just as the Lord Jesus, according to Christian doctrine, cared for his enemies. He loved his enemies and saved them from damnation. He saved them from eternal judgment, and also according to the Christian church near you that you keep passing by and not visiting. What was I going to say? Lost my train of thought. Well, this is David Tulis, and the train of thought is on the news today, and on the sky, and on life beyond prison. And one thing I didn't ask Mark Casson is, what about people who are convicted of sex crimes? Are they ever to be redeemed? Is there any redemption for them? They have criminal records, and when they come out, are they somehow more damaged goods than, say, a man or a woman who committed fraud by stealing from an employer? It seems to me that there's a great deal of damage done on these crimes, where it appears that men, and mostly these offenders are men, they can't find themselves restored. There's a continuing lifelong punishment against them. I was wanted to mention how on the first Lord's Day of the month, there's the Lord's Supper in many Christian assemblies, and I often find it's valuable to consider a prayer that is made by Christian people who are about to take the Lord's Supper. The Lord's Supper is a communion with God himself, the rite instituted by Jesus on the Last Supper. And it is where God meets with his people and dines with them. It shows amity, it shows grace, it shows condescension of God to mankind and particularly to his children. And I went through this prayer about where the Christian admits his sins. It's amazing when you think about what Christians accept as accusations from God. God is accusing them. And there are words like, this prayer says, we confess and acknowledge most sincerely before your holy majesty that we are poor sinners, conceived and born in iniquity and corruption. You hear that? Prone to do evil, incapable of any good, and that in our depravity we transgress your holy commandments without end or ceasing. Wherefore we purchase for ourselves, this prayer says, through your righteous judgment, our ruin and perdition. So we have ruin and perdition. Nevertheless, O God, we are grieved that we have offended you, and we condemn ourselves and our sins with true repentance, beseeching your grace to relieve our distress. Notice all the words of self-condemnation. That is something that Christianity highlights. It's a remarkable thing that there's a system of worship and life in which the participants, the Christian people, right, are admitting these evil things about themselves. This prayer goes on to say, O God and Father, most gracious and full of compassion, have mercy upon us in the name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. And what I had done is I've gone through that prayer and marked and read all the slights and ought that God has against us, all of our evils. And then also putting in green the solution, right? The restoration. That's what Christianity promises, is a restoration in a relationship between the creator and the creature. That would be between God and us. And the prayer goes on to say, it's just a couple more lines. And as you blot out our sins and stains, magnify and increase in us day by day the grace, notice that, of your Holy Spirit, that as we acknowledge our unrighteousness, that's in red, with all our heart, we may be moved by that sorrow, which will bring forth true repentance. Okay, there again, that's what's required of the sinner in us, mortifying all our sin. Mortifying, of course, means putting to death. Again, that's a word that I put in red. We have to mortify our sins. Producing in us the fruits of righteousness, that's in green, and innocence, which are pleasing unto you, through the same Jesus Christ our Lord. That's a prayer that Christian people in Chattanooga say when they take the Lord's Supper, when they say that they're not holding to any sin, of which they are identifying and enumerating specifically to them, claiming the sin and then repenting of it, and saying, I plan by God's grace to not partake of that sin anymore, not to indulge myself anymore in that vice, that corruption that adheres to my bones, since I am the son of Adam and Eve and have offended God. Is this not a way of looking at the whole debate we've had this week between the Bible and the Quran? The Quran does not have that kind of submission to God. It really doesn't. It's very, very proud. It's full of external rules and rituals, external permissions, including the rape of slave women, without there being fornication. So, Islam allows for fornication in the context of righteous judgment against the enemy, the kafir, and the saving of that dead kafir's women folk for slavery and sexual servitude. That is something that is built into that religion. Where is the grace in that? Where is the sorrow? So while we think of the Muslim immigrants who are going to be coming here to Hal Drive in Chattanooga, to the Refugee Relief Center, they're going to be coming here in the hundreds, very possibly, in the thousands, possibly. We have the prospect of many of them knowing that the Muslim system, the Quran, the Hadith, and the Sirah, the three documents, the three pillars of Islam, that they will turn from those and they will hear the sweetness of Christianity. And that prayer, where the man who prays that prayer before taking the Lord's Supper, that prayer is a picture of a right relationship with God. And it's, of course, the relationship is always broken by the fall. As we consider with Mark Casson in the penal system, our unjust penal system, there is this recognition of the fall, but then there's this restoration. And we here at Nooganomics.com and at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, we are wanting there to be restoration. Restoration needs to happen, and there needs to be this sense of sorrow. Mark Casson, on the day of jury selection, he pleaded guilty. He said he wasn't going to lie anymore, and he was going to own up to a capital crime. And he says he should have been executed. He should have lost his life for his crime. But in God's grace, he was shown a lot of grace, and the charges against him were dropped, and he finally exited the prison system in California and lives here. He's lived here in Chattanooga for 2 years, and is working in the great field of local economy and the free market. WorldNet Daily has a story about Obama's UN plan, and touching on a question that is of interest to you, my listener. I think it's about violent extremists, and it is the Strong Cities Network, which has been pushed out in the last few days with little fanfare. WorldNet Daily is giving a detailed report about that. I recommend that you go and read that. And Bill de Blasio, the New York mayor, says, today we tell every city, every town, and every community that has lost the flower of its youth to a sea of hatred, you are not alone. We stand together, and we stand with you. This is an internationalist system. Again, separating local economy from the idea of law enforcement and peacekeeping, internationalizing it, because in the end, the globalist system through the UN, through Washington, want to have control of all the entire policing function. And yet we think that local economy is making headway, gaining back some of the ground that is lost through the concealed carry permit system in Tennessee, which the lieutenant governor is urging you, my listener, to take part in. Get a concealed carry permit today, he suggests. I would agree with that. I agree with Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey. There's a quote here from a Minister Shaham Hadyan out of Everett, Washington. His group is called Love and Truth Project. And he says it's no coincidence that the project was launched at the United Nations. He says, so who are they going to target when they talk about violent extremism? This man grew up a Muslim in Iran and now travels the country talking at churches about the dangers of Sharia law. He says, well, if you look at their track record, it always seems to be that your violent extremists are your Christians, your veterans, and your Second Amendment advocates. Well, I find that just amazing. Is it possibly true? Is it possible? Is it possible that that's true? Well, this is David Tulis. I do thank you, my listener, for giving me just a couple of minutes of your time. Make sure you get a pizza today from Raphael's. Buy one and get one free. Come on, this is how you support free market radio. I'm a commercial radio station operator, and you need to buy that pizza from Raphael's, and do it today. Support free market radio.
After areas of patchy dense fog, another warm and dry day expected for your Thursday. Highs back into the lower 80s. Tonight, a few more clouds, milder lows, lower 60s.